Alright, cheersin'.
Might as well.
Cheers.
To dehydration after running.
Too warm again. So, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm Coco.
I'm Marika.
And we are Serial
Knitters.
This is a podcast about knitting. We're going to talk about knits. Mm-hmm. And we've got two dogs in the room right now.
Yeah.
Gordon and Argus.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hear an excessive amount of breathing.
Mm-hmm. Or a tussle.
Yeah. It all might go down. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Unlike last time, we are not a month and a half from when we last recorded.
Right.
There's some exceedingly bright light coming in,
mm-hmm.
so.
And there's clouds passing by, so it's been real hard to find the right exposure, so we're just going to have it blown out for a bit, and maybe it'll settle in.
Yeah. So, but, it's been a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton to share because I had a couple weeks off during Christmas, and I got a bunch of knitting done, and I kind of finished up some projects that were languishing. But Marika had to be the one actually working while I had time off. So
yeah, I've got a little bit of progress to share, but mostly just aspirations.
So I think we'll just go one at a time because most of mine are finished, but Marika's just working in progress. So I will start with what I'm wearing. This is my finished Magpie Tendencies. It is done in Woolen Boon. This is the Robin Sparkles colorway. I'm going to get it.
Robin Sparkles
Okay. Colorway. And then the top, I think last time I said it was Black Panther, but it's Dirty Panther by Madelinetosh. And it is a crop. Pop up. See? It's a crop. And it's made so that you only have to use one skein because it is a fingering weight project, but it is knit on a size 10.5 is a US 10.5 is what I did, and I didn't even swatch it because I just thought it didn't matter. So, and I honestly didn't want to I didn't know how close to a full skein it was going to come, so I didn't want to risk it, but I still have plenty left over, and I could have swatched, but it's fine. It didn't really matter. I am so in love with it, and I'm glad it worked out because there are some things we're going to talk about today, if we get to them, that really didn't work out for me. So it was really simple. I would recommend it to anybody. It flew by. The only holdup I had was this tiny little bit where you have to pick up the stitches and knit for like the sleeve. I just waited months to do it, basically, just because I don't know, I got distracted and then I didn't want to pick it up. She does suggest that you use wooden needles because if you use, because it's such a loose gauge, if you use metal needles, stuff slips off and you drop stitches a lot, which Marika experienced my struggling with that when I was trying to do the sleeves because I only found my metal needles in that size because my other ones have mysteriously... they're in whatever bag I had this initially, I know they're in that bag. I just couldn't figure out which one that was as I was like hauling myself off to work early in the morning. So I just grabbed my metal ones, and then I was cursing the whole time. I was like, that's so falling apart.
Because you don't like metal needles at all.
I don't like metal needles at all. And they were so large. Part of my problem was like I don't like to hear the scraping noise. And they were so large, they were just like scraping against each other the whole way. And I was like, but, yes, I would definitely recommend this to anybody who had a skein of yarn that they just wanted, to make a garment, but didn't have anything to pair it with, or, only had like a contrast to pair it with. And she does have an option for it to be a 3/4 length sleeve. So, if you wanted longer sleeves, that would be.
I like the cap sleeve, though. It's really cute.
It's great. I love it.
You got a compliment at the coffee shop?
I got a compliment at the coffee shop, and I realized, which introduced me to somebody who was a knitter that I didn't know was a knitter because one of the male baristas there, he knits, and I was like, oh my gosh. So now I think I've got a new friend.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I don't have any finished objects. I have an almost finished object. So it's the Amelie sweater.
With how exposed this is
you're not gonna be able to see anything. Ooh. Okay, so that's probably how you can see it better. So the left sleeve is done. I'm working on the right sleeve right now, and then I just have to weave in and block. So this is the cable pattern that is on the sleeve. It's kind of like a little zigzaggy thing. Yeah, so I made, after the balloon cardigan incident, total failure.
We lost that episode, so they can't see the epic rant.
I grabbed that as a finished object and just show you how awful it is. So with that pattern, I followed to the T, based off of my measurements, what the amount of recommended ease should be. And what resulted is a sweater that I could fit 2 people in. It was so big.
Yeah, it's pretty large.
And it's supposed to be an oversized sweater, but the problem was like I did it to fit my chest measurement, and that the sweater never gets any smaller. There's no decreases. And so, it's 15 centimeters of positive ease up here that just continues down to your waist, which my waist is not the same size as my bust. So it became, what was 15 centimeters up here became like 30 centimeters at the bottom, and it was just gigantic and horrible. And so from that, learned my lesson on that one. So I never follow the ease recommendations for patterns anymore, because it just never works out for me. So usually what I do now is I pick the size of the pattern based with usually an inch to 2.5 inches of positive. If it calls for positive ease, I'll do an inch to 2.5 inches on the bust measurement, and that's where that's how I pick the size to make. So based off of that, I picked the medium to make for the Amelie, which I think worked out to like an inch of positive ease in the bust.
You've tried this one on?
And I've tried it on, and it fits fine. It's
now the color's better.
Yeah. It's not as oversized as hers, the examples are, but being that I have very broad shoulders and a chest, I tend not to want things to be super oversized, because then it just looks sloppy on me. I need it to be a little more fitted up here for it to read as wearable in public, basically. And so, so what I did is I did the body in the medium, but then because I'm using yarn weights that aren't called for in the pattern, and to get gauge, I was using different size needles. I have a different number of rows than what she recommended. And so when I picked up the stitches for the sleeves, for the medium, I think it was supposed to be 78, but I ended up picking up, just if I picked up every stitch, it came out to about 101. And the extra large, the largest size of the pattern had 104 stitches for the sleeve. So I just made 2 more and then made the largest size sleeve, which actually worked out really well. I tried it on, and it's not baggy. It's just like, and it's not tight. It just, is a straight sleeve. The other thing I didn't do that the pattern called for was decreases in the sleeve. So it was supposed to be like every 10 rows you decrease. That was just because I didn't read ahead.
That's a classic me problem.
Yeah, so I just went full force to, like, it said do the cable pattern for 8 inches and then, rib for 1.5 inches and then bind off. So I did the cable pattern for 8 inches and then went back to the pattern to double check the rib length, and then found out I was supposed to have been decreasing the whole time. So whoops. But what I did do is I decreased by like 6 stitches, I think, in the ribbing, just to make sure, because the 8 inches hits me like right at the elbow bend, and so to kind of bring the rib in a little more to just fit more snugly below the elbow, I just decreased a few stitches on the underside in the rib to kind of bring that in a little more. And so now I just have to replicate the same mistakes on the other arm, and we'll be good to go.
They're pretty simple, though. You've got them down. You just said them very clearly. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's where that one is. I'm hoping to be done with that one in like another week or so.
Yeah. And then comes the struggle of trying to figure out how to style it. What are you going to put it with?
Yeah, that's always my problem. I make these things and then I never have any way to wear them, which is why I never wear. You're always wearing your knits, and I think I've worn one on here.
You like that Lorna Lane? Lotus Lane? The one that is not on Ravelry.
Oh, the Lang Lone.
That's the one.
Yeah.
You wear that one more often. So you yeah.
So yeah.
Marika bought me these sock blockers for Christmas. And so I made socks. Finally, I think I showed these on our first episode. And now there's finally 2 of them, which is great. And you will notice they are not identical. By any means. This is a cautionary tale. Do not wait 6 to 8 months to cast on your second pair because things get weird. But there's 2 of them, and no one will ever, outside of what's happening right now, no one will ever notice that these are wildly different cufflinks. And that somehow... I said to myself, I really want a mocha. And I was like, no. It's day 3 of the new year? Be a good person. Don't get a mocha. Try to achieve your fitness goals. I feel like this is a mocha. I think he just gave me a mocha anyways.
Did you go through that verbally with them?
Nope.
Or they just sensed it?
I feel like they sensed it. And they were like,
give her a mocha.
Give her a mocha. And I'm so excited that happened. Because it feels like it was free. Like, it feels like the calories don't even count.
Since you didn't consciously.
Yeah, I didn't order this.
Too.
So, okay, we were talking about my socks. There are 2 of them. Wait, this way.
We're continuing on the neon theme.
Yes. These are the Coffee Talk socks by Tracie Millar from the Grocery Girls. I have knit these almost 3 times.
You made
twice.
A pair for your husband, right?
I made a pair for my husband, which is what the big gap between these 2 were. I knit one, made a pair for my husband, came back to knit the other one. This one was first, this one second. And I think this is the last time I'm knitting this pattern. It was great. Maybe in a couple years when it's worn off, but it was a struggle. This is all Knit Picks yarn. This is I think it's Hawthorne in, I guess I should have figured out what these things are called. I will note it here because I have it on Ravelry, I believe. So I'll note it down below. This one is, I believe, Capretta, and it's in the Pickle Juice colorway. I think this one is Hawthorne. I have I think I've washed this sock before and dried it, and hopefully when I wash the other sock and dry it, it'll shrink up just a little bit because it's a little bit bigger than I expected. But I'm happy with them now that they're done, and it feels like a good conclusion to this period in my life. So, and then outside of that, Marika bought me some sock blockers for Christmas. That was my Christmas gift. So I really love these. They're from Twig and Horn, and they've got kind of an argyle pattern on them, which sometimes I feel like it's difficult to find knitting accessories that aren't a little fussy. And this is I think she did a really great job of finding me something that would fit my style and isn't too fussy. So I'm in love with them.
Oh, good.
It really did spur me on to finish the sock because I was like, if I finish the sock, I'll get to show them on both the sock blockers. It'll be so good. I'm so glad this is done. Hooray! Check. Done. Never have to do them again.
So, I guess You turned me on to the idea of, 9 projects? Is there a name for
Make
it?
9?
Make 9, yeah. So I don't have any sort of social media savvy, shall we say. I'm not aware of trends, anything like that.
I think that you just actively do not wish to engage in...
So it's a conscious ignorance.
I feel like it is.
But anyway, I did not know of this.
Yes.
of this Make 9 thing.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about, like, what are the projects we're going to do next? And so Stacy mentioned the Make 9, which is, I guess you pick 9 projects that you want to complete in the next year, and it makes a perfect grid on Instagram. Probably already know all of this. But anyway, so I started working on that just to give me an idea and a goal to try and work towards for the next year. I think I finished 7 projects last year. Mm-hmm. So it'd be a little more ambitious than what I did this past year. And then, so to start that off, I'm just going to pull up my Ravelry really quick so I know all the patterns. I put them all in my queue on Ravelry in the order I want to do them.
And you decided to prioritize them by what you already have yarn for, in addition to, 2 gifts, right? 2 gifts that have to get done.
Yeah, so the first 2 projects are, one is for my mom, and it is the Ataraxia sweater that was in the winter issue of Pom Pom last year, by Linda Marvang. And so I'm going to make it out of the Brooklyn Tweed Shelter for my mom. This is she loves this color green. And this color is actually called Tent.
Looks like a tent.
So yeah, so that's going to be her very belated Christmas gift.
And how do you feel about knitting something so rustic?
It doesn't actually feel as rustic as I thought it would now that it's, caked out like this. It feels fairly soft. We'll see as I get into the project how rough it is on me. I think everything I've had has been some form of merino or something like that that's been pretty soft and smooth. I haven't really had anything that's this woolly before, and I do have a mild wool allergy, so we'll see how that works. I am worried about the Amelie sweater because when I tried it on, I wore it for 2 minutes, and then I took it off, and my whole chest was just bright red. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah.
So that's the first one of the 9. The second gift is, this one I'm going to have to buy yarn for, but it's a gift, so I was I justified, it's just this one kind. We'll get through it.
Right.
The second gift is a hat for my dad, and he's probably where I got the wool allergy. His is even more intense than mine, and so he's been having a hard time finding hats that he likes that aren't full on acrylic, that don't have any wool content. So I was like, well, you should get something in alpaca, and I was like, I'll just make you something in alpaca. So I have, this is a baby alpaca that is left over from the Ramblin' Woman sweater.
And it's hard to see, but it's a navy.
It's a navy blue, and if I could knit everything out of this, I would. I love it so much. I love the color, I love the feel, it's great. It's a DK, and so I'm going to use...
remember who the manufacturer is? What it is? Do you think it's on your Ravelry?
It's on my Ravelry. I've listed everything I used in the Ramblin' Woman because I got it all.
I'll try to make a note.
And so they were all indie dyers. But I'm going to be making petite knits. I think it's the Oslo hat.
Yeah.
With this, and then there's not enough of it to make the Oslo to finish it. So then I'm going to finish it with this, which is the Blue Sky Alpacas Metallico Platinum, which is alpaca and silk. So this is the pattern calls to hold 2 fingering weights, so which equal a DK, so the internet tells me. So I'll start with this, and then when I run out of this, then I'll have to hold this double. But I think between the 2 of these, I can get a hat.
Okay.
So that's project number 2. Yeah. I don't know if we want to alternate with a finished project.
In between your 9?
Yeah. Do you want me to run through all 9?
No, it's alright.
Be a lot.
We'll do... Break and show a knit. So I knit this actually a long while ago.
I have not seen this in a while.
No? Not since we took the photos. I have decided that I'm going to gift it to Cameron's aunt, Jane.
Oh, okay.
My struggle with this is the, if you'll hold that end.
Yes.
There it is. This is the Terrazzo Shawl. Mm-hmm. I will pop a picture. I don't remember who the designer is, but I will note it here. And I knit it with the intention of giving it to my mother. But my mom, as I've mentioned on this before, struggles with my same issues of not really understanding the proper way to wear a shawl.
Some of the shawl patterns I find are very odd shapes.
And then they kind of fall off, and you're like futzing with it all day long. Mm-hmm. And my mother and I both struggle with an inability to downsize the number of bags we have. So if you're futzing with the shawl and you've got all these bags in your hands, it can become very tiresome. So I knitted the whole thing, and then I was like, actually, she's just gonna struggle with this one, because I was struggling with like how am I supposed to wear this? But Cameron's Aunt Jane is much taller than my mom. She's a larger person than my mom is. My mom is only she clears 5 feet tall on a good day. So this has one really long side, and it's so long that I was like, this is, it's the length of almost my mom's shoulder to her kneecap. So there's no way she can just wear it just down. She'll have to keep wrapping it around herself. So anyways, I just assumed Jane wouldn't want a knitted gift, but then Cameron was talking to her at Christmas, and she said, oh, no, I'd love to have something knitted. So it felt like she was the perfect person for this without knowing who I was knitting it for initially. But the pattern was quite lovely. I was a little bit not excited about the way it blocked out, which I think was an issue with how I blocked it rather than anything to do with the pattern. And as it's had some time to kind of dry and regather itself, it's gotten significantly better. But this section here is Malabrigo, I think it's Machita or something like that. And it just gave up the ghost in the blocking process. It was so stretched out. And I was doing everything I could to bunch it back together so that the stitches weren't crazy long. I'm gesturing way off camera. That wasn't crazy long. So it's had some time, and it's kind of rebounded itself, which I'm very glad for, because it was almost unusable the way that it stretched out initially. This section here is mosaic knitting, which I am obsessed with doing again. It was so easy. It's a series of slips to make this pattern, and it's a chevron that is a little bit difficult to see. The center portion here is a cascade. Okay, we had to brighten the exposure. It's going to be all over the place, as previously stated.
Yep.
Okay, so we were talking about this Terrazzo,
which
shawl.
Looks lovely like that,
right? But
yeah.
Look at what's going on back here.
So,
what would you even do with this?
We got all this on this side.
So, anyways, so the front half was Malabrigo yarn, and then this center portion here is Cascade Heritage in gray. And if you get up close, you'll see that a little bit of the color from this red has bled into the gray. It's not too bad, but that will become an issue that you'll see on another project. Down here at the bottom is Madelinetosh Cactus Flower is the colorway, and I think it's just Madelinetosh Tosh Light. When I bought it, I thought it was like a red, and the idea of it being a blue, gray and red were more like my mom's colors, properly red. And even though it said cactus flower, I should have thought about the fact that cactus flowers are actually kind of pinky. But it came as a surprise. Even when I was winding it up, I was like, oh, this is going to be a lovely red. And then as I started to knit it up and see the fabric, a full swatch of the fabric, I was like, no, that is really pink. Really pink. Which is not really... My mom isn't too much of a pink person. So, this... In general, I thought that the pattern was really good, and I would highly suggest it. This lace work wasn't too difficult because you kind of get a sense of what's going to be happening when you're making these chevrons just by slipping stitches. Once you get down into this part, you're a little bit more ready. It's like a run-up into that lace work where you're like, okay, I kind of understand what sort of pattern we're going to be making, so you can see real easy when it starts to get off. And then you get to go back into the mosaic and then back into the knit. So it's well thought out in that you feel like you're going from easy to more difficult, and then when you've almost had enough of the difficultness, you're back out and then you're home free. So I thought it was a well thought out pattern, and now we look crazy with this exposure.
It got real bright. Let me see if I can.
Suddenly, insanity. There you go. We're back to at least something decent. Okay. I thought the charts and the pattern were exceedingly detailed. She did a really great job. If you like reading written patterns and you don't like charts, she's got that option for you. If you like charts and you don't like reading written patterns, she has the whole thing again as a chart. I thought it was a good pattern as far as the value of information that she's giving you. So I would recommend this pattern to you if shawls are your thing. I'm not sure why that front edge is so long for me. Maybe I didn't pay attention during the increases or something like that. It just got real thin and real long. But I think this will work on a taller person, on a larger, taller person. So I'm hopefully it'll work as a gift for Jane. But
yeah, I think we've both learned a lot in the past year in terms of adapting things for our heights and frames and that kind of thing.
Still learning. Definitely still learning.
But now having the knowledge going into a pattern, like I can't, like most of the time this pattern, I'm not going to be able to just make it as is.
Yeah.
Like adjustments will be needed in some form or another.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, I guess I'll keep on with my 9. So after the hat, then it's the Perfect t-shirt by Anna and Heidi Pickles. So the goal was to do the 2 gifts first, get those out of the way, and then start stash busting, because I've collected quite a bit of yarn over the last year. I just started in November of 2018 was when I really started knitting again and knitting hard, going hard. And so, and now I've got all this yarn, and as you can see behind me, I'm trying to like organize for the new year and all this stuff and clear out and use what I have and, be more financially responsible. So not purchasing as much yarn, use what I got first. Anyway. And so, so stash bus first, and also knit for, with the idea of like, usually it takes me a couple months to finish a project, so we're into spring, summer at that point, and so knitting something for summer that I can wear.
Oh, so you're trying to knit for the next season,
right?
Not knit for the current season,
right? Because because I'll never finish anything in the current season. It takes me a season to finish something, so I'm like, okay, so if I start, let's say February, March on this thing, hopefully it'll be done by summer. Okay. So that's why I'm making this t-shirt, and I'm gonna make it out of the Pearl Soho Cattail Silk. I got this at the clearance, or
at the warehouse
sale. Yeah. And so the yardage on this is incredible.
It's like 600 yards.
Yeah.
A skein.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I'm gonna try a couple different swatches. I don't want to hold it double because the pattern calls for a fingering weight, and this is, I think, a lace weight. So I'm gonna try a couple gauge swatches and just see what it's gonna knit like, and see if I can just use a single strand. It's like a weird yellow green color. I really like this color, and what I had originally bought it for was to try and use it with this mohair, with the tussock I got at Pearl Soho, which is this like lovely kind of minty turquoise, and I thought I could use them together and make something fantastic, and so I did this test swatch, and it just came out this like horrible mess of like a baby blanket color that is just awful to me.
Yeah, it's
and
not great.
So I bought those with like these amazing ideas in mind. They do not work together at all, and so now I'm trying to figure out what to do with either individually. And so t-shirt with this one, mohair is still in question.
Yeah, the green quality of the yellow comes out in a very unpleasing way next to that aquamarine kind of blue. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I was so disappointed. I was like, so bad. So then, after that, continuing on with summer knits, which may not be summer because it's an air and weight yarn, but the always on my queue as if tee.
Which I don't understand why it keeps
by
getting
Shay
bumped.
Johnson. It just keeps going down and down and down. I have everything I need for it. I love these colors. I think I'm worried. Like, I think when I was about to start on it, I had just come off the balloon cardigan fiasco, and I was just so worried I was going to ruin this too. Because I had such, like, beautiful visions for the balloon cardigan. I got, like, the perfect buttons. It was so great. And then it was unwearable, and I'm going to have to rip it all out and do it again, which it's still fully intact.
Yeah.
In my closet. I've not ripped it out yet because I just can't fathom doing it all again. So I feel like I was very frightened to ruin the as if tee because I loved all of this so much.
Yeah.
So hopefully, having a few more successful projects under my belt will give me the courage to get this underway.
Yep.
So yeah. More finished objects.
Let's talk failures, guys. Let's talk failures. I did a Soldotna crop, and my thought was I was going to do it in summer. There you go. You'll see it right there. That's the problem. I was going to do it in summer shades, or like summer weights. This is all cotton. This top one is denim from DMC, the ones who make embroidery floss.
Okay.
All right. So, had a little interruption because the dogs heard somebody in the hallway. But I did a Soldotna crop. I was doing this out of cottons, as I just said. This top one is DMC denim yarn. It's a little thick. It's a little heavy. So I was mixing in Mojave by Kelbourne Woolens, which is just a cotton that I really like. It's pretty, it's not terribly affordable, but it's $10 for a good amount of yardage, and I would only need a couple of, one skein each for all of the colors except for the body part. So I thought it would be a good price point to have this at. And then, so anything that's not this denim-y color is that Mojave by Kelbourne Woolens. And I really liked the mix of these hot colors with the denim. But what had happened was I went to block it, and I have heard that you can add like vinegar or something like that to the water of what you're blocking out so that you can, what's up, guys? Sorry, they're still freaked out from the person in the hallway. I heard that you can add vinegar to try to keep the colors to stay, but it didn't work. I didn't do it. One.
Go lay down.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, you don't think it's that bad?
Yeah, you sent me a picture, and it's like, yes, there's a little bit of running, but the way you would describe it to me initially is like, I expected all of this to just be blue.
If it had all been blue, I think I might have liked it better.
And that you would never have seen any of these, the, like, little hits of pink and yellow throughout here. And it's like, okay, yes, it ran a little bit, but the majority of it is still good. I feel like it's just a soft, like, ombre.
I just think it's weird that now, because of that ombre, the brightest portion is right here.
Where you don't want it to be highlighted.
Yeah, the brightest portion is the whitest portion is, like, not the ideal.
When this is the intent to be the focus. This whole thing up here.
Also, my tension was so tight, I could have gone up a size, 1 in needle and 2 in maybe the size I knitted at, because it fits, but only just. And it fit right before the holiday season, which means it's not fitting now. I have eaten so much. I am sure this doesn't fit me anymore.
I had a similar issue with the Ramblin' Woman, which is also a Caitlin Hunter pattern, or Boylan Network pattern, with the shoulders being
just tight.
Yeah, and the rest of the sweater's fine.
But yeah, because she does like a lot of positive ease once you get out of the yoke.
But even with the short rows and all that kind of stuff, like the shoulders are real tight.
So this, to me, is a failure, but Marika is advocating it not being treated as a failure.
Right. I also am interested in, like, what are possible techniques for getting rid of the running? Like, could you take, like, a little Tide pen or something and go in there? Or, like, some OxyClean or something like that? Like, I'm interested if it's, like, can it be salvaged in some way? And what can we learn from trying to salvage it?
I can harvest all of this except for the part where... I have a couple different things I'm thinking. Okay. One being, was this the right color combination to begin with? Like, in that, I made the center portion of the body here the brightest color. Was that the best choice? Once I put it on, I was like, oh, I don't want to... That's not my favorite part to highlight. If I had made this section dark, would that have been better?
So,
if the whole thing I'm starting to rethink.
Okay, that's fine. Would you have reversed? So, but you like all these colors together.
Yes.
So, would you replace the swap the cream and the dark denim color?
See, then again, no, because I feel like that with my skin tone, it works well to have a dark color right against it here. If it were this color up here, it's not as... I don't know. It just doesn't seem to frame me as well. That's why I like this dark edge there. So maybe not. Maybe I would have...
Just something different to replace the cream altogether.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe the pink, but then is it a little more bubblegum than I thought was aiming for? Maybe it's fine. See, there's so much I'm not sure of with this one.
So even if it hadn't run, you're still not super pleased with the finished product. Is that the consensus?
That's pretty accurate.
Okay.
In that, these fleece stitches, I feel like they're a little bit open. I'm sure that's a problem with my tension, but I would have liked those to be, like, some of them are fine. They're a little more compact. And then some of them got really open. And I'm not sure what was going wrong with that, but when I put it on, and because it's a little too small, like, that stuff stretches even more, and it becomes more obvious that, like, the tension wasn't good. So, in general, I just don't think I did a very good job of knitting this. Then I didn't do a good job of blocking it. And I was on the fence about it from the start. And I feel like all of that indecision I was feeling just kind of came out in the finished piece. But in theory, it was...
You still like the pattern.
I really love this section. And then everything down below that, I'm just not sure about. And not sure how to resolve it. So, there's something to leave you feeling incomplete and wanting more. Finished object.
Cool. I guess
back to the 9?
Moving down the 9. So
I've only got 2 more things anyways.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe we'll go through. Well, we'll see. Okay, so the next is for Christmas. Stacy got me Coco. Fuck.
Oh, by the way,
I don't
my
know if
legal given name you have
this episode. Okay.
My legal given name is Stacy. My nickname is Coco, and sometimes people call me Stacy. Sometimes people call me Coco.
Yeah, I met you as Stacy, and so I default to Stacy, even though I've been trying. You're in my phone as Coco. I try and say Coco.
It's fine
when I introduce you to new people.
Sometimes when I'm introducing myself to new people, I sometimes mess up and don't know what to say, and then they're like, "Do you not know what your name is?" And I'm like, "I just don't know. If we're like in a formal setting, then it has to be Stacy, and if it's not formal, then it can be Coco." And I'm like, I don't know, whatever.
Okay, so anyway, for Christmas, you got me this awesome project bag by
Fringe
Supply Company. That it's been great because I can fit a sweater in it, which none of the bags I have previously will fit a sweater. I'm having a few issues with it. One in particular, this drawstring doesn't close all the way. I feel like over time it will ease up, and you know, because it's pretty new and so it's pretty stiff right now. I feel like it'll get better and it'll close more. This might be a me issue, not a bag issue, but I continuously get the yarn because there's like a little feeder. You put your cake in here, and then there's like a little grommet that you can feed the yarn through. And then what I tend to do is then get the yarn totally tangled around this knot. And no matter, it's happened every time. So that might be a me issue. Just one thing I'm having with this bag. Other than that, it's beautiful. So thank you very much. I love it. Sure. It's a great pattern.
You were trying to deconstruct it to make one.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I have some muslin over there that I've been like pinning together to try and figure out. And then what I want to do is do a cloth covered doctor's bag closure so that it'll open to a total square, but there's nothing to get caught on.
Yeah.
Because apparently I just can't navigate a knot. I don't know what my issue is. But anyway, so what she also got me was the winter 2019 issue of Pom Pom, which is on the table there. So, this year's winter issue of Pom Pom. I love all the patterns in there. There's this crochet sweater that's also on my 9, which we may or may not talk about today, that I was like, I didn't know crochet could look like this. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But also in there is a sweater I think I can use this yarn for that I bought on clearance at the Knitting Tree. It was 50% off. I loved the colors. It was cashmere. I had no clue what to do with it.
Right. A couple of episodes ago, we did it was half a year ago at this point, but only a couple episodes because we don't film consistently. But we did that thing where we were trying to figure out, like, would it be good for the magnolia?
Yeah. And because I don't have, it's 2 different colors. One's, I'll show you right now. So, one is this light turquoise, one is this dark teal. And I think they work well together. And the issue is I don't have enough of either color to make a single garment in a solid color. So I needed to find some sort of two-tone garment to work with them together. And so I was like, I loved the Magnolia Chunky, but it just didn't feel right how it would transition. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so what to make with these two colors. And then in the new issue of Pom Pom, they have this sweater called the Arete by Geraldine Yang, and it's like a turtleneck with these, it's two-tone, so it's got these like long triangles that kind of cross the body on either side. And I thought, oh, that would be a nice one. I think it would work with these.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
your yardage. You think you have enough?
I haven't done the math yet.
Okay.
I also don't know if these are the right yarn weight, but that's never stopped me before.
Daydream.
So we'll figure it out. So yeah, that's number 5. And then number 6 is the bouquet sweater.
Yes.
So Ravelry had a posting on just on the main page that was about Rhinebeck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a photo on there of these 3 women that were all wearing the bouquet sweater. And I'd never seen the bouquet sweater before, but I saw this photo and I was like, I need to have that sweater.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one. Now we're out of the stash busting portion of the 9 into the I'm gonna have to buy some new stuff.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna make it out of. We'll see how it goes with this Brooklyn tweed shelter, because I was gonna make the bouquet sweater out of Brooklyn tweed shelter, but just in another color called Haymarket, which is a bit more orangey.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pattern in the sweater would be one of these 2 colors over here, either this one or this one.
Which were Pearl Soho's mulberry?
No, neither one of them is the mulberry twist. I'm not sure what they are, and they're different weights. So the Flamingo one, I'd probably have to hold double, and then this one I think I could get away with a single. But yeah, so yeah, the bouquet sweater. So that'll start the next round of yarn purchases for that one.
All right. Another finished object.
Yes.
I did the Flaum. We talked about it last time. And in our discussion last time, I was saying I would have to rip back crazy.
You
almost
were
all
like,
of it.
Yeah,
Just trash it.
start it over.
I didn't do that. What I did instead was accept some portions where it's a little bit thin, and I don't think you can really, well, you can kind of tell. You see that line under the line?
Just
yes, right there. That is where it all went wrong. And I just went and accepted it.
Which it doesn't, you don't know, when you're wearing it, it's fine.
You know what you do notice? It's got baby pockets that are unusable and unnecessary. So.
And you knitted it shorter than what the pattern called for.
I thought I did, but I could have gone even shorter.
Yeah.
I knitted, so it said to knit to 14 inches under the arm. I believe I knitted to 12 inches under the arm. I could have knitted to like
8 to 10.
Yeah. So, I love this shawl collar. Here are the little baby pockets. Look at these things. They don't do anything. They're not good for anything. And I split for the pockets at the appropriate time, but because I'm 2 inches short here, it's 2 inches short on the pocket, which makes them like fingertip pockets.
Just little finger warmers.
Tiny little fingertips. And then, like, I thought this was going to be
like a full mullet sweater.
Yeah, and this is not a very embellished angle because I got a little distracted and didn't really do the short rows in the back to the proper way. And then I also just think I could have been shorter. Like, this is a little bit long on me. I thought it was gonna stop about here, and then the longest point would be about here, which means I would have stopped before I even split for the pockets. And on my height, I think that would have been fine.
Because when Marika tried this on, it was the perfect size for her.
Yeah, and I'm 5 inches taller than you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I love this yarn. It's the Kelbourne Woolens again, but this is the Scout. I think last time I accidentally said it was Germantown. And I actually looked at the label, and no, it's the Scout. It's such a plump and like, it feels like a luscious but still rustic yarn. It's very warm, and just what I needed about a week after I needed it. Because it's just now starting to get warm, and I could have used it a couple of months ago, which when I got stuck on that back portion was when I should have been finishing it. Now, I feel very inclined at some point to just rip this back about 4 inches and do it again. Or maybe keep this and knit it again. I don't know.
Would you, so if you were to shorten it 4 inches, would you do pockets at that point?
No, I would not do any pockets. I don't think the pockets are necessary.
Right, because
Like,
we've
they're
discussed
fully
if
unfunctional.
it's that high,
Yeah, right.
you're like a little T-Rex with your hands in your pockets.
Yeah, it's
So
unnecessary. So I really loved the construction of this sweater. I really thought it was a joy to knit, especially at a very stressful time, because it was meditative. It just kept going, but it wasn't like when you have rounds and rounds of stockinette, you think you're gonna just die.
and it you know, I think it's really pretty. You know, it works well as like a neutral, you know, everyday piece, but it has enough visual interest, you know, to make it special.
Yes, I just don't. It's one of those ones where I feel like this is gonna be one of the most functional and most worn things I will ever knit, but it is not that flattering on me. It does make me look a bit frumpy, and it's a little bit, it's not form-fitting or figure-flattering, because it basically cuts me off at the widest portion of my backside, and then it doesn't, and because it's so long, like I had to make it so wide, and it's just not the best looking, but it's also like a very comfortable, like I'm just gonna sit in it and not go out or something like that. But actually, I'll go out because I don't have any shame with my tiny little pockets. So I really love this. I think I'll throw it on all the time, but it's also like not me admitting to being my most fashionable self when I'm wearing it. And yet I still love it. Even with its little like, here's another section where I just had to give up and just like agree that this was not going to work out. So somewhat of an achievement, somewhat of a failure, but I'm really gonna wear this piece a lot, even with its flaws, even with the things that I wish I had thought about before I started to do them. I love this yarn. I could make everything out of this yarn, but it's so warm. I would never be able to wear everything.
You'd have to make just all tank tops out of it to like,
or I would
breathe.
only go to like cold places.
Yeah, you'd have to go to like, you're gonna have to go to the snow more often.
Yeah. It's so good. I would highly recommend this yarn. It was just a joy, a pleasure. I got to spit splice, which is, you know, not having to weave in ends at the end. That'll be one of the joys you get to do with when you knit your sweater for your mom, is to spit splice the yarn, which is, you know, a somewhat disgusting process, but it means you basically get to knit continuously. You just add them together, your balls of yarn together and together and together. You don't have to weave in any ends. It's
I
great.
like that. I hate weaving in ends.
So I would recommend the pattern. I think it's great. I think you just need to pay attention, more attention than I did, to the short rows in the back as you're going down. And then I think, honestly, I don't know how tall the model was, but I feel like if you're under 5'4", you should definitely think about shortening the length of it, maybe not doing the pockets because they're not very useful anyways.
Okay, we'll talk about my next work in progress, and then if the audio didn't record on the last section, I'll quickly do it again. Okay. Work in progress. I'm doing the minaret. This is all an episode of me admitting that I don't pay a lot of attention. So, I'm working on the minaret, which is a crop, and here is what my head is supposed to fit into. I have doubts. This is going to work out. I did swatch this, and I thought it was fine. Then I checked the gauge again once I had knitted this much of it, and I am 6 stitches off.
So what does that mean?
I'm 6 stitches too many, which means I'm making something bigger than it should be.
Wait.
Like, I'm supposed to have a 22, and I've got a 28 stitches.
To make gauge.
22 to make gauge, and I have got 28.
But your 28 equals the gauge.
I mean, it's always 4 inches, right? So you're supposed to have 22 and 4 inches is the correct gauge. I've got 28 and 4 inches.
So does that mean you're making something smaller? Because if you cast on the correct number of stitches for the gauge, you should have cast on more, six more per 4 inches to get gauge, right?
This is not where I excel.
Gauge is a mystery to me. Googled it many times, like tried to do the math. I'm like,
But okay,
a hope and a prayer. But I would think if you have,
I would need a larger needle,
more stitches to make that length.
Yeah.
Then, if you only cast on what they tell you, then your garment would be smaller, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that explains why my head's not gonna fit into this. So I'm gonna have to rip all this out. Fantastic. I don't know what happened. I don't know why. I did a gauge swatch. I thought I was fine on 6s. And then once I started to get into it, and I did swatch in the round. So I tried. I did everything I should have done.
I never do that.
And still, once I got into it, I think it was because maybe on the swatch I was knitting English and then I switched to continental. My tension was different. I don't know. But suddenly, you wouldn't think it would change that much, but suddenly I'm not on gauge. And I'm a little concerned for what that could mean. So I should probably stop while I'm ahead and go ahead and restart it. Well,
Re-gauge it,
and then restart it. But I'm loving this yarn.
It's coming out really nice. I love how it's knitting up that yarn.
It is looking a little bit thin, which I don't know if I was getting the proper gauge. Would it be less thin? Would it be more thin?
Well, you'd have to go up a needle size, right, to try and get gauge.
Right,
so it might be even more thin.
Which is a little bit of a concern. It's pretty thin as it is.
But if you got gauge, you might not have to stretch it as much, so it might.
Right. So I'm loving this pattern. It's very easy, even though it looks intricate. And it only looks intricate because it has a stripe through it, basically. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple raglan, top-down raglan. So I'm just in love. I'm in love with the yarn. I'm not in love with my continued issues with gauge and with just attention to detail, I guess, is not where I excel, which is funny. Why did I choose this craft? Maybe so I could practice it. So that's in the process. Okay, so you're suggesting that because I have more stitches than I need, I would need to go up a needle size. Or 2.
Yeah, because, right?
It sounds right.
Because I would think...
because I need to lessen...
the number of stitches you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Row-wise, I'm not that far off. I'm 2 stitches off on rows. But I'm 6 stitches off on stitches. New Year's resolution for me will be to just be a touch more, I don't know, attention oriented, so that my knits will not have all of the disclaimers that I have on the back end of like, well, I messed this up and this is terrible and this was wrong.
I mean, there are mistakes that if you didn't know the pattern, I mean, the pockets aside, if you didn't know the pattern, like, I wouldn't know that any of those were mistakes that you made.
It's true. The thin lines, I feel like, are very forgivable, and I'm glad I didn't rip it all back. The baby pockets are borderline unforgivable, and I might rip it back just to eliminate the baby pockets and make it shorter. Which I feel like if I get a couple more projects done, there won't be as much outrage by the people who watch me knit telling me that, like, don't go back. Anyways, yeah, so I feel like once I have a couple more under my belt, I feel like people who watch me knit will not be as concerned for me and my mental well-being if I rip that one back and try to adjust it. So there are a couple of projects where I'm hoping that I can just make a few adjustments on them and then they'll be better. The Soldotna, I'm not sure. Just not sure what could even be done.
Would you make another Soldotna?
You know, I was on the fence about making it in the beginning because I was like, oh, it's not that I don't want to make things that are popular, but I was a little bit like, maybe it's a little too popular, it's a little too done, and I wasn't sure if that amount of color work was going to be overwhelming on me. Sometimes I feel like I can wear things that look a little childish, and then I look, you know, smaller standing around a bunch of adults. So I wasn't sure. I still am not sure about the color choices that are going to be right for me on that one and if I want to remake it. But it was a very addictive pattern. It was very quick and like...
Yeah, no, knitting with like color work and stuff, I feel always... It feels like it goes faster because you're like, okay, did this row, what's on to the next row of the chart, on to the next row of the chart. Whereas like if I get... Even though theoretically, I guess, knitting in the round and stockinette should be the easiest and you feel, and you know, like, fastest, it feels like such a slog sometimes.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Alright, so we did it.
We did it!
First one of the new year. I think we also have a resolution to be more consistent.
Yes.
Which I think I'm trying to be more organized this year, which hopefully will help enable that, because a lot of the times I've lost things or just not had it together. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, not to agree with you, but I mean,
yeah.
I lost the mic this morning, so we're filming at this weird time where the light is going crazy because I couldn't find the microphone. So, I mean, it's something we both are struggling with and can be better at.
But yeah,
it's gonna work out.
Be good.
We don't have anything to cheers now.
I just have water.
I drank all of mine.
You drink all your coffee too?
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Cheers.
Cheers. I don't have anything.
All right, and happy knitting.
Happy knitting.